Big project that The Athletic, great website, full of tremendous sports writers, just completed. And it was their top 100 players ever in NFL history. I'm going to read off the top 10 for those who haven't been following, and then Rob and I will discuss number 1 and who should be there. Number 10, Dick Butkus. Number 9, Johnny Unitas. Number 8, Walter Payton. Number 7, Peyton Manning. 6, Joe Montana. 5, Reggie White, the Minister of Defense. 4, Lawrence Taylor. 3, Jerry Rice. 2, Jim Brown. And number 1, Tom Brady. Rob Parker, your thoughts?
Just threw up in my mouth. It's just, I think it's so overblown. And not that he hasn't had a tremendous career, but to rank him as a number 1 football player is ludicrous to me. And I make a case, and I get Jim Brown. I can make a case for Lawrence Taylor, talk about changing the game and his play and what he was able to do and stuff. You know, you can make a case for a couple people. And I get that Brady's been a part of a lot of winning, but I just don't, when I look and say, like, I don't think he's the greatest quarterback, and I'm talking about physical tools or skill-wise or whatever. Is he the most accomplished? Yes. But would I call him like the greatest quarterback ever? I don't think most people would. It's hard for me to think.
I do think most people would.
No, I think
you're
so.
in the severe minority.
Skills. I'm talking about skill-wise, not accomplishments.
But it's everything. I mean, people.
No, I know.
When people say he's the GOAT, they're not saying
I'm talking about my opinion.
But you said most people. You said most people.
I've talked to a lot of people in football who say he's the most accomplished. He's not the greatest quarterback.
I haven't seen anybody else on TV say he's not the GOAT.
I've talked to plenty of players who don't believe he's that guy. But anyway, the 4 or 5 people you watch, then those are the people you listen to. I've talked to people
4
who
or
don't
5
feel that
people?
way.
4 or 5 people? Come
4 or
on,
5
man,
people
stop
you
it.
talk to. But that's my opinion.
I mean, and even saying Rob, it's fine your opinion. You said most people.
I didn't say most people.
You did.
I said that I talked to.
You said most people.
Most people that I talked to.
But first you said most people.
Most people that I talked to.
You didn't say that when I jumped in.
Most people that I talked to don't think he's the best quarterback, and I'm talking about physicality and skill set
Is he the
and
best
all that.
quarterback or not?
No.
Physicality, skill set. I mean, there's more to quarterbacking than that.
No, I don't think he is. I don't think that people think he's the best quarterback who's ever played the game. Is he the most accomplished? Yes, but not the best. That's all I'm saying. So I just think this is a typical. It was like when they picked Michael Jordan as the greatest athlete of the 20th century instead of Muhammad Ali and Michael Jordan's a great athlete, and I'll be the first one to say that. But there were other players who had huge impacts. And in this case, this is a prisoner of the moment. If Tom Brady didn't win the Super Bowl last year, I doubt that he would be in this spot where they're putting him. Yeah, I doubt it. I really do, if he didn't win. So it's easy to do that coming off a Super Bowl. That's all. I think it's lazy by The Athletic. I think it's predictable. And I think the list is not much to pay attention to because I think it's a reach.
I do not have Tom Brady as the greatest football player of all time. I don't agree with your assessment. I don't think it's ludicrous. I don't think it's prisoner of the moment. I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that he won the Super Bowl last. I mean, a little because he went to a different team. But he would have 6 anyway. He'd have as many as any franchise ever anyway. So I don't think just number 7 put him over the top. I think it would have been over the top, on the top. So and I don't think Michael Jordan being the greatest athlete of the 20th century is ridiculous either. I mean, Muhammad Ali, it was great, but a lot of the reason we have Ali as the GOAT and all that, a lot of it has to do with what he did off or outside of the ring. So, but if you're just saying athlete, you can make an argument for Jordan. All that said, I still don't have Brady number one. I got a few reasons. Because football, the positions are so dependent. I mean, we can talk about what a quarterback touches the ball every play, and that's obviously true. But without a great line, I mean, seriously, a quarterback can only do so much. And you look at the Super Bowl, you saw Pat Mahomes with his line in disarray, he couldn't do much. And without a defense. And I'm just not going to play into the oversimplification of the game that takes place nowadays when we put it all on the quarterback. And I give Brady tons of credit. I do think he's the greatest quarterback ever. Doesn't have the strongest arm, might not be the most accurate of all time, but not just accomplishments, the smarts, the decision-making, the clutch plays. His skills are top-notch. Like, I think he's the greatest quarterback. I think that's indisputable. But football player, I mean, I just think if you were holding tryouts, and I don't mean the combine, where you just run and you go through some agility drills and jump, see what your vertical is and bench press and all that. I'm talking about if you ran football players through a gauntlet of things where you had to block, you had to tackle, you had to run, you had to catch. That's football. It's not just throwing the ball. There's no way you would say Tom Brady is the best football player. Now, you have to take his accomplishments and achievements and position and all that into account. So I'm not saying you rate him way down, but I just think that because every position is so different and every position is so dependent that you can't just put it all on a quarterback. And so that's my first thing, Rob. Secondly, I got Jerry Rice number one. And I got Lawrence Taylor number two, and Jim Brown number three, and Tom Brady number four. Because Jerry Rice dominated, and then same for Lawrence Taylor and Jim Brown. They dominated their position. It was like supernatural compared to everybody else, compared to other greats. Jerry Rice finished the all-time leader in touchdowns, more than 30 ahead of the nearest competitor, Emmitt Smith. Jerry Rice had 208. Emmitt Smith has 175. Jerry Rice has like 5,000 more yards than the next most from a receiver. He has more touchdowns than any receiver. And reception, and it's because, Rob, you know this, that's in a day where they didn't throw the ball like they do now. Right? So I mean, Montana, most of his seasons, he didn't even throw it 400 times. And Jerry Rice was still putting up these numbers. Can you imagine what he'd do today? And then Jim Brown, obviously, I mean, he was a one-man machine back in the day with the Browns. So I give Brady his props. I don't agree with your disparaging of it, but I do agree with you that I would not have him number one football player.
But the problem I have is your terminology doesn't make any sense, because Tom Brady doesn't do those things. So you're disqualifying him, but you're saying that maybe you could disqualify Reggie White because he doesn't touch the football. He's not a skilled player from the standpoint of catching or running with the ball or whatever. So you could use that case against everybody. Was Jerry Rice the best blocker? Was Jerry, you know what I mean, when they needed a block downfield? Right. So I don't think
nobody does it all on a football field.
That's what I'm saying. So you can't.
I think there's a degree of athleticism that's necessary.
I don't think that's fair if you're going to say that that's the reason you're disqualifying Tom Brady, because he's not a football player. The position that he plays is quarterback, and he's done the things that you need to do. So you can't take him out of the equation based on.
I didn't take him out of the equation.
No, what you think is a football player, but what you say is he, like a football player, is a guy who could run and block and tackle. No, not for a quarterback who's a football player. That's not what you need him to do.
But we're not just judging quarterbacks.
Kicker. No, but I'm saying, but he's playing his position. everybody plays their position differently, and everybody has different skill sets on what you need to do. Some people could look and say linemen or all they do is rush the passer. They don't really do anything. They don't have any stats. All they do is try to use their strength to get at.
I wouldn't put a lineman at a top football player either.
Well, I'm just saying.
I feel like I have to there's a certain degree of athleticism and strength I believe you need to be the best football player ever. Because it's a game of athleticism and strength. That's my criteria. But beyond that, like I said, he didn't dominate his position. Like Jerry Rice is head and shoulders above every other receiver. Lawrence Taylor head and shoulders above every other linebacker. Tom Brady, like you said, head and shoulders in terms of accomplishments or team-wise. But individually, Rob, Tom Brady only made 3 All-Pro teams. That means in his 20 years, only 3 times was he viewed as the best quarterback that year or in the league. So Peyton Manning's got 7. Now, I think you balance everything out, and I think Brady's done enough winning, and overall his numbers are enough to put him ahead of Manning. But I'm saying he hasn't, dominated his position. Jerry Rice was 10-time All-Pro. Lawrence Taylor 8. So they dominated their position, in my view, more than Brady has.
Yeah, but I just, that goes to where I'm at with Brady. I just think it's one of those narratives and conversations that people have, and it's easy to do when guys win. And it doesn't matter what the circumstance is or if Tom Brady had the same exact stats and won 1 championship or 2, he wouldn't even be close to the conversation if he had the same stats. Just say he didn't win and it had nothing to do with him, right? The defense wasn't that great or whatever. Would he be in that conversation based off his stats? No.
Not with 1, but his stats are good. He's the all-time leader in touchdowns and yards. He's in the top 3, if not the all-time leader in touchdowns, yards, things like that. So, but he wouldn't. I mean, Aaron Rodgers not in the conversation because he's only got 1. Nobody with the stats better than Brady even would be in the conversation with just 1.
All I'm saying is the idea is, to me, it's a prisoner of the moment. It feels it's better to put Tom Brady. You're not going to put a player who hasn't played. Who are your other options? Guys who aren't playing today? The list isn't sexy if Lawrence Taylor is at the top of the list. How do you sell that list to somebody to read that Lawrence Taylor is the number 1 player of all time? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well,
you can't sell it. Look at the names you just mentioned. Jim Brown, Reggie White, Jerry Rice, and Lawrence Taylor. You're going to sell that list, Chris, today, the top 100 players in the NFL history, and Tom Brady's not on that, not at the top? That list would be in the garbage can tomorrow. Nobody would care.
Well, because you made an interesting point in that I hadn't even thought about this till you said it. Brady is the only active player on the list. Okay, however, I do think you could sell the list because it would be like, wow, you didn't have Tom Brady number 1? Like if Lawrence Taylor was number 1, you could sell the list. Because the fact that Brady's not number 1 would be a big deal.
I don't think so. I think that you have to have him in order to sell that list, and that's an issue. And he's the only active player. Is that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah, he's the only active player. And remember, Rob, and we always talk about this. This list was put together by media. So we've always said, and I think the facts back it up. They are the best judge of things like this.
Yeah, but I don't know when it's a project for. And you know this because we worked at TV networks and different stuff. You got to put a hook on it that people are looking for. And I'm telling you, that list doesn't have the same impact if Brady's not at number 1. That's just my opinion.
Wow. I disagree, but